Hey book friends, welcome back to the channel. So in today's video, we are going to be talking about the books I read in April. I am just still wrapping my head around the books I read in April. There's one I really didn't like, a couple that were okay, but no like standout books, if that makes sense. So yeah, let's just hop into the wrap up. Hey everybody, welcome to the channel, or welcome back if you've been coming for a while. So like I said, April wrap up time. Let me start with the first book I read, and the book I really did not like that much. So I read this book with Amanda from the Curly Reader. I will link her down below. I had such high expectations for this book, and I feel like it kind of missed for both of us. So this is a World War II historical fiction book about this woman who found a suitcase full of photographs, and she found out that these women were missing from World War II. And then you kind of jump back in time and you start learning about their story, how they were acting as spies and infiltrating like France and helping out the resistance and the Allies. And that is the basic premise of the story, which sounded so exciting. And I've heard such good things about this book in particular because I have not read any Pam Jenoff, so I thought I would start with what everybody seems to like the most. But it just fell flat in so many ways for me. So let's talk, I guess, about the things I did like. I liked the atmosphere. I liked the spy aspect. I love a good World War II spy book, especially ones that involve women. I really enjoy that. There was some times that definitely had some intrigue and anxiety of like, are they going to get caught? What's going to happen here? Like, I liked that. I really liked that aspect. What I didn't like was the characters and how the author portrayed the characters. And it felt very unbelievable is probably the best way to put it, because one of the main characters is a single mom and she signs up to be a spy. She signs up to leave her daughter and act as a spy. And so you follow that, you follow her doing those things, and her decisions don't feel like a single mom. It doesn't feel like she is a person who is just really wanting to get back to her child. I mean, the premise was she just wants a better future for her child, but she just didn't act like a mom. And that would drive me nuts with some of her decisions and some of the things she did. And then there was some romance thrown in there. And I talked a little bit about this in one of my Friday Reads videos, but I have a tough time with historical fiction that has romance, especially historical fiction that's like war-based. Like, they're at war. There's all these things going on, all these people are dying, and it's the time for a romance, and then it felt very insta-lovey. I just don't really like that in my books, especially not my historical fiction books. And so I feel like that would just keep bringing me out of the plot. It just was unbelievable. Like, it didn't make logical sense that this woman would be acting the way she was. And then some of the other plot lines as to like the end and the reveal of like who did it. I mean, it partly made sense, but it was a little bit of a letdown. It was a little too convenient for like the bad guy, if you will. It wasn't really a bad guy, but it just let me down. I feel like I had maybe too high of expectations from this book because I know a lot of people love it, but I just felt like it didn't make as much sense. And I feel like the longer I sat with it, the more upset I got with it. So in the end, I'm going to give it 3 stars. It's probably honestly more like a 2.75. I feel like the further I've gotten from reading it, the worse my star rating has gotten on this one. But anyway, that is what I thought about it. Go check out Amanda's wrap up for her thoughts on it. I think she liked it even less than I did. Okay, next book. If we go on books I didn't love, I liked it, but I didn't love it. And that was this book. So In the Woods by Tana French. So this book is about the Dublin murder squad, and one of the main detectives on the squad is called into a murder in the town he grew up in. And the murder appears to be very similar to a tragedy that happened in his childhood where him and his friends were in the woods and he was the only one that came out of the woods and his friends disappeared. And he has like no memory of it. And then this murder happens and him and his partner are called into it, and it goes from there where he does not reveal the fact that he has a personal connection to the case, which he probably should have from the beginning. And there was definitely some hardships that come of that. But what I really liked about this book, I loved the characters. I loved him and his partner. I liked how it showed how they got to know each other and how they worked together. I enjoyed that. I did enjoy the murder mystery aspect of it, like who did it, and as they were collecting evidence and going through it, it felt very realistic. Like, this book is definitely a slow burn murder mystery. It is not fast paced. It's not like where you're going from one intense event to another intense event. It is not like that. It feels more realistic of what a police investigation would be. So I did like that. The problem is I also didn't like that. I felt like it kept me from wanting to pick it up. It was almost too slow to want to pick it up, especially after a while I started not loving the main character and he started to make me quite mad at his character. And so that resulted in me not picking up the book. I feel like this took me like 4 weeks to read because I was just so slow at picking it up. So that was probably one of the biggest things that brought my star rating down to more of a 3.5 stars. I did enjoy the end. I enjoyed the reveal. I enjoyed kind of how it played out. There was some things that surprised me. I didn't see it coming, so I enjoyed that part of the book. I really enjoyed the writing. I did. Even though I just complained about it being too slow, I felt like it was well written. And I'm looking forward to trying more of her books. Because this book didn't turn me off totally, I just feel like it was a combo of the slow pace and the fact that I just started to really detest the main character that made it hard for me. But the next book in the series follows his partner Cassie, which I liked so much more than him. So I do want to pick that up. But this one was okay. Okay, the next book I read also as a buddy read was Sara from Sara's Reading Nook. I'll link her down below as well. And this is Beasts and Beauty, Dangerous Tales. And so this was 12 short stories, and they are fairy tale retellings. And I liked a number of them. And I thought they were very clever and they were unique enough to not be like the real story, but if you knew the stories of like Beauty and the Beast or Cinderella or all the different stories, you could enjoy it because you see the glimmers of the original, but you can see how the author played with it to kind of bring out some extra messages. I feel like there was a lot of undertones of like empowering women or just bringing up kind of race issues. There was even one that kind of really focused on like rape culture. So it was really good. There was a few that I did not like, but I'd say there was a number of them that I just loved. So my two favorite were probably the Hansel and Gretel one, because it had to do with the kids, and you'll see if you read this, and then the Peter Pan one, the very last one. Those were my two favorite stories from in here. So if you have read this book, let me know what you also liked, but I ended up giving it a 4 stars. It was a solid 4 stars. I feel like I didn't have the expectation I would like all of them, and I didn't. There was probably 2 or 3 that I just didn't care for, but that left like 10 that I really liked. So 4-star book for sure. I'm glad I picked it up. I'm glad Sara picked it. I probably wouldn't have picked it up myself. I just don't read short stories, so I'm glad I did. So the next 2 books were my favorites from the month. And the first being this one. So I read Red Rising by Pierce Brown. I really liked this book. So this book is a sci-fi book set on Mars, and it follows the main character of Darrow, and he is part of the Red class. And so this is a society that is very much has a hierarchy and is based on colors. So the ruling class is like the golds, and the almost pretty much slaves are the reds. And Darrow is a red, and through a series of events, kind of at the beginning of the book, he gets quite angry and he wants to push back against how the society is set up, and he wants to take down the golds basically. And he does that by becoming a gold. So that's why it's called Red Rising. And then it gets into it. So you know that's going to happen because that's from the back of the book. And I don't really want to go too much further into it because this book surprised me in the direction it took, because like most of the book is not about what the back is talking about. But I would say this book is a solid setup book, but it also had a plot line that was able to finish out and was very satisfying in and of itself. But I don't want to say it too much in case you do pick it up. I very much enjoyed the characters. I enjoyed the character of Darrow. I felt like his character was probably the most interesting because he just grew a lot in different ways. He felt very realistic, but he still was like a teenager. Like I feel like he started the book at 16 and maybe he was 18 by the end. So it did have a little bit of a YA feel because of the age of the main character and the people around him, but it's not YA. No, it's not. There are definitely some things in here that you just would not hand to a teenager, in my opinion, but it was a very entertaining book. And it got me to a place where I want to see what happens, although the way the book ended made me just like, no, I was so upset at how it ended. I understand why it ended that way. I understand that it's set up for the next 2 books, which are Golden Sun and Morning Star, to hopefully finish out the story of Darrow as he's trying to like destroy the golds, which is the basic premise, I believe, of the whole story arc. And so I really did enjoy it. I'm giving it a 4 stars, more of a 4.5 stars, but not quite a 5-star book. But I really did enjoy it, and I really do highly recommend it. If you are at all interested in getting into some science fiction, it doesn't feel very science fiction-y, other than the fact that it's set on Mars. So that's a good thing. I feel like that's a good intro into science fiction if that is a desire of yours. And the last book I picked up totally on a whim. It wasn't on my TBR at all, but it was on my shelves and it just looked really interesting. So I picked up The Boneshard Daughter by Andrea Stewart. So this is an adult fantasy book about this world or this empire that is ruled by what's called Boneshard magic, and the emperor is in charge of the Boneshard magic and he uses it to fuel and run his constructs, which are basically these like robot animal type things that patrol the land and kind of keep everybody in order. And then he has this daughter who he is not allowing to learn the Boneshard magic, and she feels very oppressed by him, and so she kind of starts learning it behind his back. And so her storyline goes from there. But then there's some other things going on. There's other people involved. There's this man named, I think it was Jovis, who's a smuggler who starts to gain kind of power, and he's involved in some different things, and he gets involved with more of the resistance group in here, and they do some things. So I really did enjoy it. I enjoyed the characters. I feel like I enjoyed some storylines more than others because it jumped from person to person, like different perspectives. Like there was a Jovis chapter or a Lynn chapter, and Lynn was the emperor's daughter. And so it jumped from person to person to tell the whole overarching story, which I feel like it did well. It kind of wrapped some things up, and the different characters kind of interacted a bit, which I liked when the storylines collided. And I feel like it ended in a satisfying way, but I do know that there is a sequel, and the sequel just recently came out. I think it's called The Boneshard Emperor. I could be wrong, but I do want to pick it up. I would say I would give this book 4 stars. I enjoyed it. I feel like the story was unique and it did surprise me. There were a few things that were not explained as well. You kind of have to go with it and you're like, how does that work? I guess it doesn't matter. And you just kind of keep going with the story, and that's okay. I feel like it was still entertaining and it brought me with it, and I want to pick up the next one. So I'm really glad I picked this up. I do recommend it for anybody who is interested in that. I don't feel like it's too complex of a fantasy story, of a fantasy world or magic system or anything like that. I feel like it's very accessible, if that makes sense. So those are my books. I read about 5 books, which I feel like 4 to 5 is about my average. So I'm happy with that. I'm excited for this upcoming month. I just filmed my TBR spinner game and that was really fun. And so go see that if you would like to. Otherwise, let me know if you've read any of these books. Did you like them? What's your thoughts? There's a few that I would just really like to talk to people about, especially like Red Rising or The Lost Girls of Paris. Oh my gosh, I want to know your guys' thoughts. So let me know what you think. And otherwise, that's what I have for this video. Give me a thumbs up if you like wrap-ups, and subscribe to the channel if you want to. And I will see you guys in the next book video. All right, take care.